I will read that notice now. The Board of Commissioners of the City of Mount Juliet will have a public hearing on May the 11th, 2020 at 6:15 p.m. on the following items to be considered on second and final reading. 1, amend the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for monitoring and removal of debris from tornado damage. Also, amend fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for insurance recovery and replacement of 2 police vehicles, 1 destroyed in the tornado and 1 involved in the crash. Public is invited to attend and comment, but I do need to make this comment as well. Social distance guidelines will be followed. Restriction on the number of people allowed in the room will be maintained to allow proper distancing. The meeting can be viewed on Channel 3, Comcast 3, TDS 6, live stream from the city's webpage, or on YouTube. The public is invited to attend or comment, and they can do so in a number of ways. You can email Miss Sheila Luckett. You can find her email address on the city webpage, or you can access the agenda portal and make comments that way. Go to government/agendas and minutes, and then log in the upper right-hand corner. And with that, we will open up for the public hearing. Do we know if there is anyone in the hallway or in the parking lot who is wanting to comment during the public hearing?
People downstairs for the Legacy Point and the Providence Central.
Are they wanting to comment now at the public hearing?
They are happy to comment at their item if that's okay with y'all.
Okay, we're on the public.
Once.
We're on the public hearing.
Okay.
They're not on the public hearing, so.
I'm sorry.
Okay, but no one wants to comment on these 2 items. Okay, so with that, we will close the public hearing. We will go to our regularly scheduled meeting. This is the Mount Juliet Board of Commissioner meeting. It is Monday, May the 11th, 2020. It is 6:32 p.m. We do have a full quorum present. All 5 elected officials are in attendance. We will set the agenda as published. Mr. Gino, do I need to announce that we will be possibly adding an agenda item at the end to repeal an ordinance? Okay. Okay, so that could happen, but we'll see if the votes are there to do that. And at this time, we will begin our evening with the invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'd like to introduce you to our police chief, James Hambrick, who will lead us in prayer. Thank you, Chief.
Let's pray. Lord, we come and Lord, we give you thanks, Lord, for this day, for this is a day that you have made. And your word tells us to be rejoiceful and be glad in it. And so, Lord, we thank you. And Lord, we just pray that you would lead, guide, and direct in this meeting. Lord, we pray for discernment. We pray for wisdom. Lord, we pray for, Lord, your strength. Lord, we thank you for your covering of our city. Lord, we pray continually, Lord, not only for Mount Juliet, but for our nation. And Lord, we just now would just pray the prayer that you taught your disciples to pray when you said, Our Father, who art in heaven, Lord, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lord, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. That is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, Lord, forever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Can you lead us in the pledge of allegiance as well?
Let's join together as we say, pledge our nation's flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Chief, thank you for doing that. Appreciate that very much. For those who are watching tonight, you'll notice that we are spaced around the room. The public is out in the hallway or in the parking lot, so we've maintained the spacing. We do have permission from the state government, from under Executive Order I think it was number 30 under Governor Lee's executive order to hold this meeting electronically. And that's up until June the 30th, I believe. We have tried that and we've done that. But this is also acceptable under his executive order. And so I can speak for myself. I chose to do it this way because we have the budget hearing, first reading on our budget tonight on the agenda. And I thought it would be extremely difficult over an electronic format to conduct a budget hearing. So that's what we are doing, and that's why we are spaced out like this. Next item of business is approval of the minutes. There are two sets, one from April the 13th and one from April 27. Is there a motion? Is there a second? I'll second. Questions or comments, changes to the minutes? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Those minutes, both sets are approved unanimously. Next item of business is citizen comments. Anyone wishing to address the board on any topic, they can do so at this time. Do we know if anyone is in the hallway wanting to address the commission? Okay, so did you pick that up, Travis? No one is present to make comments, and no one has called or emailed prior to. Okay, and I got confirmation from the hallway. Next item of business is the commissioner reports and comments, and we will start with District 1, Commissioner Ray Justice.
Thank you, Mayor.
Trying to figure out the microphone. I got you.
You got it? Okay. Really quick, want to just tell everybody I hope everybody's doing well during this time. It's a trying time. It's an aggravation, and hopefully things will get back to normal. I want to real quick comment on an article that was written in one of our Lebanon-based newspapers. And one of those papers that is famous for fake news. We hear it quite frequently to talk about fake news, and this one was extremely fake. Concerning the last meeting that we had, we did not do anything to violate the governor's executive order. We followed the guidelines explicitly, contrary to what was reported in that particular piece of garbage that they call a newspaper. So just wanted to make sure everybody understood that it was fake news. It was a bad article. It was written poorly, and it was not factual. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Going now to District 2, Commissioner and Vice Mayor James Maness.
Thank you, Mayor. And speaking of that article, I was quoted in there saying it was needless to meet. That was a quote being derived from the fact that I saw no value over meeting in person versus online, not implying at all that anybody did anything wrong. So anyway, well, happy bicycle month in Mount Juliet. So hope everybody's having a good one. But I'm gonna go through my comments here, and I'm sure I'm gonna miss someone, but these are just the efforts that I personally have observed over the last couple of weeks. I want to start out by thanking everybody for their patience through the tornado and the cleanup and the recent windstorms now that we've seen that have hit the city. I want to thank the Public Works Department for their efforts in the cleanup as well. It seems just as you get close to catching up after one disaster, another one hits, and I know it's requires a lot of extra time and effort, and you guys have gone above and beyond, so appreciate it. It's not going unnoticed. The Parks Department, too, has been busy with tree damage across Charlie Daniels Park, Ethan Page Park, damage to buildings at Mundy Park. They worked very hard as well. The police department, that night the windstorms hit, battling dispatch and communications issues. And on top of that, they responded to a ton of additional calls with traffic crashes, power lines down, and of course, trees blocking roads. And they worked very hard through those issues and made it seem seamless to the public. The fire department, also handicapped by the same dispatch issues, responded to homes being destroyed. They helped clear streets, and in addition, the same storm destroyed the building they use as Fire Station 2, collapsing the roof onto the fire truck. Thankfully, no one was injured in that event. And I'd also have to mention the IT department. They worked hours into the morning setting up portable generators to keep the failed backup on-site generator, to bypass it, to keep the communications up in the city. Their actions kept key radio components and communications online for fire and police, and they put in many hours that night working through that with vendors and contractors to get that done. And that sometimes goes on in the background and gets missed. I do too want to take this opportunity and single out a particular subdivision, it's Triple Crown. I wanted to just say, in the midst of the cleanup from the tornado damage, the windstorms seemed to hit them hard again and block their only access. The neighborhood mobilized and they cut their way out for their only entrance into their, they got it back open. They didn't sit around or anything or waiting for the city. They took action quickly and got it open. They worked over the weekend. I saw example after example of neighbor helping neighbor get their property cleaned up, to get the debris to the curb, to catch up on that final pickup from FEMA, the FEMA contractors, to clean up that tornado debris. And that's one thing that makes this city so wonderful and great, is just example after example of neighbor helping neighbor through the problems that we've seen. With that said, I just remind everyone, please remember your small businesses. They're hurting. Many are wondering how they can pay their rent or make payroll. So in every way that you can, and every effort that you can, try to help those small businesses out. This is a city that is thriving right now on neighbors helping neighbors. And I just hope we continue in that spirit as we move ahead. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Now we will go to District 3, Commissioner Archiles.
Several weeks ago, I got an email from one of my constituents. His name is Paul, and his wife is Bridget Whittlesbach, and they live actually they live in my subdivision. And the question was, would we allow them to put banners up on the fence at West Wilson Middle School? And because they really wanted to support the police department and the fire department and the responders, the first responders. And so if you've noticed, going on Mount Juliet Road on the left, these banners have been up there for several weeks now. And it was Bridget's idea to make these bows, and she put the white bows on there. And we've got photos of these banners. And so luckily they were up there until later today. And for some reason, here they are. If you look at the screen, look at your screen, I think y'all have noticed this. It says, "God bless our first responders and healthcare workers." Mount Juliet says, "Thank you to our hometown heroes." And these kind of things really mean a lot to people when they go down through there. I know, a lot of our families, first responders. Ray's retired from being a first responder. My son's a policeman in Nashville, and his wife's a nurse, a registered nurse. My other daughter-in-law was a registered nurse. So it really hits all of our families. And I just appreciate someone, and they did this with their own money. They bought the signs from a local business here in town. And so I just want to applaud them and thank them for wanting to do something to thank our first responders in our city and abroad for what they do and what they've done for us. So, and I would, if it hadn't been for this kind of situation where that we've got this social distance and stuff going on, I wanted to personally have them down here and recognize them. But we can't right now, but we sure can in this way. And hopefully whoever took these down this afternoon to put the new fence up will put these back up. And of course, I didn't know they were taking them down, and neither did the city that we know of. So anyway, thank y'all again for doing that for us here in the city. We applaud you and we thank you. And Mayor, that concludes my comments.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go to District 4, Commissioner Jennifer Mullally.
Sent out my April newsletter. I send them out every month. If you don't get them, you can email me and I'll send them out to you, and also put them on Facebook and Nextdoor. It's also my website. You can access it at jennifermullally.com. It's got some good information in it. Also address the food truck issue. I personally am glad to see our businesses start to reopen. And so remember that they've been struggling. So hopefully more people can get back to work. The retail, I haven't been able to work in my job of merchandising either. So I haven't had an income there. So I'm looking forward to going back to work hopefully soon. And anytime I go out in any store, it looks like people are adhering to the social distancing. So that's good to see. It just shows that the public is taking it serious, continually taking it serious. And so with that being said, just keep being safe and distancing yourself. And that's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We do have an interested group that is watching tonight. All of you know that there's many things happening via the internet now and live stream and Zoom and different programs. And so I want to welcome Boy Scout Troop 911. I know you are watching tonight. You're on the live stream, and those young men are they're working on their citizenship in the community merit badge. So guys, thanks for tuning in tonight, and feel free to reach out to any of us if you have other questions that you'd like answered about being a good citizen in the community. So Boy Scout Troop 911, thank you for coming out or being at least live streaming in. And then secondly, I do have a proclamation. I will not read the whole thing, but this happens to fall, and we heard some really nice comments about first responders and nurses, and this happens to fall on National Nurses Week, which is May 6th through 12th. So heard Commissioner Giles say his daughter-in-laws are nurses. My youngest daughter is a nurse. So they've all been on the front lines of this thing, but we have a proclamation that will be going out to that group that coordinates that. And I'll only read, I guess, the last sentence of this. It's pretty lengthy, but it talks about all the attributes of nursing. And it does say at the end, now therefore I, Mayor Ed Haggerty, do hereby proclaim the week of May 6 through 12, 2020 as Nurses Week in Mount Juliet, and encourage all citizens to join me in this worthy observation. So that will be going out to that group, and we're proud to support them in that way. With that, we will go to the city manager for his report. And hang on, let me figure out where you are. Maybe that one.
All right. Is that it? That's okay. Good. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'd like to thank all the business owners for their patience. We've been reaching out to businesses daily since they were allowed to open at a reduced rate and get lots of good feedback from those restaurants. Also want to commend the citizens in this community for all that they're doing to try to stay safe with social distancing, proper mask wearing, things of that nature. I think we're all seeing that probably more and more. I think there's some that can still do a little better, but we're all learning daily to get better at that. And just want to thank everybody for that. Hopefully everybody's hearing the same kind of feedback. I'd also like to thank the Wilson County Health Department and also Kroger for partnering with the city of Mount Juliet to put on a free of charge 3-day COVID-19 testing event that will start tomorrow and run from 8:30 to 5:30, and will run for 3 days at the Mount Juliet Middle School. So I'd also like to thank the school system for allowing us to use their back parking lot. And you'll be able to basically enter on Woodland Place. The police department will be there to help with traffic and things of that nature, and then exit back out onto Chardowns Parkway and come out of the light. So to make it a very safe location, and hoping to get thousands of people tested at free of charge. So that again is 12th, 13th, and 14th of this month from 8:30 in the morning until 5:30 in the afternoon. And that concludes my report.
All right. With that, we will go into the business portion of our agenda. I will be sure that all the elected official microphones are on. And with spacing, sorry, it takes me a minute to get the legend and the correct microphone lit up. Okay, I think that's it. We will start with the unfinished business consent agenda. There are 3 items on that agenda. and I'll need to read all three into the record. Item 8.1 is an ordinance to amend fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for monitoring and removal of debris from tornado damage. Also, 8.2, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, ordinance 2019-35, to accept insurance proceeds and appropriate funds for replacement of a police vehicle damaged by the tornado. And then 8.3, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, ordinance 2019-35, to accept insurance proceeds and appropriate funds for replacement of a police vehicle. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments on the consent agenda? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Those three items are approved unanimously. Next item is 9A, an ordinance approving the request to connect to the Mount Juliet sewer system made by the owner developer of 1491 Nonneville Road outside the city limits of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, identified as Wilson County, Tennessee, map 50, parcel 70. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Okay, and I heard a second from Commissioner Mullally. Questions or comments on the ordinance?
Was there any further discussion about the road connection?
The discussion was about curb cuts off of
Curb
Bonneville Road.
cuts.
And we've gotten a plan since then. If you look at the agenda packet, I gotta find it here. Well, I don't know what page that would be. Packet page 42. It shows the layout. And it shows that there would be at least 2 additional curb cuts onto Nonneville Road, which would be 2 individual lots, approximately half acre lots.
Okay, other questions? All in favor of that, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's me, nay. It passes 4-1. Next item is 11.1, an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet approximately 13.48 acres, property known as the Hale property, and being found at 8370 Saundersville Road, map 32, parcel 37.01, and being located within the city's urban growth boundary. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Okay, and I heard a second from Commissioner Mullally.
Mayor, if
Yes,
we could, we've got 3 of these.
Okay, they're all adjacent to each other.
They are. Is there any way to take all 3 of those in consideration at one time? There's really no reason not to.
Agreeable. Any objection to that?
No
You read the
objections.
other 2 into the record then. 11.2 reads an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet approximately 5.01 acres, property known as the Rommel property, and being found at 8400 Saundersville Road, map 32, part of parcel 38.03, and being located within the city's urban growth boundary. Also 11.3, an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet, approximately 7 acres, property known as the Thomas property, and being found at 8520 Saundersville Road, map 32, part of parcel 3803, and being located within the city's urban growth boundary. We already have a motion and a second. These 3 properties are under 3 individual owners, but they're coming in simultaneously for annexation. And with that, Commissioner Justice, did you have something else?
No, sir. I believe that's all that I've got just for these 3. I mean, there are 3 lots that run, and sewer is at the bottom next to the creek, next to Cedar Creek, where it goes into Old Hickory Lake. And I'm pretty sure the 3 of them will be wanting to tie on to sewer at some point for future development.
Okay.
I did find it interesting, by the way. There's a 4th piece of property up there, and if you'll notice with a little house on the picture, and there's a black hole right in the middle of the property. It's kind of scary.
Is it a pond?
I don't have any idea. There's a black hole. And that makes me a little nervous, but
Questions or comments on any of these 3? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Those 3 pass unanimously. Next item is 11.4, an ordinance to rezone property known as Legacy Point at Golden Bear, being found at map 078, parcels 1009, 12, 1302, 1303, 1304, 1305, 1306, 07, 08, 09, 1310, 1311, and 1312 from residential RS40 and office professional services to commercial interchange. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second? I'll second. Questions or comments from the commission?
Do we have any idea what they have planned for that location?
Okay. Can the representatives from Legacy Point come in from the hallway, please?
They have talked about concepts, but there's
Nothing concrete.
nothing concrete at all. There's 13 different properties, so if it gets rezoned, 13 different people can do 13 different things.
There's some woman just walked in. I don't know who that is.
Here's a question from the commissioner.
We're trying to find out what is the purpose of getting this zone or rezoned to commercial interchange? There has to be some plan.
Class A office is what our client is interested in putting together. As you know, there are no services currently in that area. No office, no medical, no restaurants. So that is the intent. If you look, there's a concept plan for a phase 1 in your packet. And again, that's concept, but we do have some interest. And if you're familiar with this developer, they have brought some, I would say, some good jobs to the area with Vanderbilt doctors, TriStar doctors, that type thing. So what else?
So what we're talking about though are spec buildings. We're not talking about anything specific at this point, right?
Actually, there are some specifics, some specific medical office that has interest here. Has anything been designed at this point? No. We're trying to get our zoning in place so that we can go forward with survey, environmental, traffic studies, all the things that would be needed for a preliminary plat.
Okay. Other questions from the commission?
This gentleman,
He is the architect for the client as well. So
well, I never say this, never will you hear me say too much, but you've got a class act working this project with this young lady here. So you picked a good one.
Other questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
thank you. Good
Next
to see
item.
you all. Stay healthy.
Next item is 11.5, an ordinance to amend the planned unit development known as the Providence Central, being located in the area of Adams Lane, Central Pike, and Providence Parkway, map 096, parcel 002, and map 097, parcels 23, 2401, 25, 75, 7502, 7504, and 7505, Wilson County, Tennessee. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments from the commission?
Mayor, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to defer till after the next planning commission, so it can be seen and heard at the next planning commission rather than us hearing it.
Okay, they're on the reps are on the way up.
Okay.
They were in the holding pen downstairs.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? To
Second.
defer. Okay. Motion and a second to defer. Let me ask, what's the we're out of order with the planning commission usually bringing a recommendation to us of some sort. What's the protocol since?
Hearing, you can do this, then it goes to the PC, and then it comes back.
Well, let me ask the city manager, what was the reason for doing it in this order?
Mayor, I think that the reason they did it, and I get Miss Jennifer to correct it, but I believe it was because of the COVID and skipping a meeting.
That's
Items were on there.
But wasn't this at the planning commission and had a
Oh.
negative recommendation?
This is a different one.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
a
same
different
people,
plan.
but they changed it substantially.
what was the change?
I think one of them is they went from RS8 to RS20. So they decreased the density.
Oh, here she
I know
goes.
that was one thing.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll go ask the city planner these same questions then. This is our city planner, Jennifer Hamblin.
Hello.
There's a couple of questions. Commissioner Justice, you want to ask that again?
Yeah, I know that our normal protocol for this go to the city planning commission, then come to us, and then us again for the second reading. Is there some reason why this has to be hurried along for us to hear this now?
It does not have to be hurried along. The reason that it's coming to you first is because when we canceled our planning commission meeting in April, Mr. Martin suspended that rule stating that these projects have to come to the planning commission for a recommendation first in order just to keep everything on track.
Okay. You may not have heard there was a motion to defer. It's seconded. We're debating that now.
Okay.
And that's the issue. Do you have any advice on the advisability?
I think that you should probably talk to the applicant because they have some changes that they would like to make to the plan. If you don't wish to do that, that's totally fine.
They have changes that they want to make tonight, or?
Even in addition to what they've already made?
They're wanting to reduce possibly some of their multifamily proposal.
Well, then it sounds like they should go to planning commission
They
first.
should go to planning commission first. That's the normal process, but in an attempt to keep things on schedule and not delay projects, that's the route that we went.
It would go before we got them on second reading, so we would still get the shot after planning commission.
Correct. Yes.
I would be more comfortable if they went through the proper, this is a big project.
It is a big project.
Yeah.
And that would honestly give them time to change what they want to on that plan.
Yeah. Is there any objection to hearing from them? I mean, I agree
No.
with the deferral. Are they right here?
They are.
Yeah, let's just hear, this is a last minute change,
Okay.
sounds like.
Yeah.
No, I think it's, those that are watching, we're being very respectful of distancing, and so we're trying to keep people separated. We have people in different rooms waiting that have expressed an interest in speaking.
We don't want to be in
And-
the fake news.
Yeah,
again.
and so slight delay, but you know what? We did a high school graduation this weekend, and we had all kinds of delays bringing one family in at a time, and it worked out pretty nice, pretty pretty.
Joe comes in here, looks like he's walking the principal's office.
Good evening,
There's
all.
just so you know, and you may have heard out in the hallway, there's a motion to defer. It's been seconded. We're debating that.
Yes, sir.
City planner said that there's some last minute changes that you all were going to propose anyway.
As the previous discussions on this project, some of y'all were involved in I'll call a field trip to look at some local communities that involved a true mixed use building, retail, commercial down, residential above. Since that meeting, it appeared it was well received, that type of product. Since that time, in discussions with staff and people in the community, it seems like that one building, it's the blue and green stripe building due west of the apartment site. Seems like maybe that is not being as well received. We were intending to place 102 residential units in that building. That building right now is not the focus of this amendment, nor the developers. So with that, we thought it would be good to offer to remove that mixed use building use classification from the PUD amendment. That would take I believe we were at 310 units on the multi or mixed use site. We're at 102 for the mixed use building. So that's 412. We would remove 102 units from the request and just move forward with the request for the 302 units on the mixed use site at this time.
Okay. I mean,
So reduce it approximately to a quarter, 25%.
all right. Okay. Other questions or comments on the advisability of deferment? All in favor of deferral, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That deferral is unanimous. Okay, we'll hear, and part of the motion was go to the planning commission first, then come here.
Sure.
So I'm not sure about the dates. I know we're not meeting on Memorial Day as a board of commissioners. So that would put you, when's your next planning commission meeting?
They'll be on Thursday.
It's this Thursday.
May 21st is planning.
Next week.
And June 8th is next week.
Okay, all right,
So
very good.
they would be back May 8th for first reading.
June.
I'm sorry, June 8th for first reading, and then the second meeting in June for second reading.
No, we would still have to skip.
The 15 to
So they would
30
be-
days, so it'd be the first meeting of July, which would be July 13th.
Okay.
Okay, did y'all get that? All right, thank you all very much. Next item is 11.6, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, ordinance 2019-35, to accept a donation from the Conover Foundation for the purchase of a multiple events response trailer. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Martin, why don't you tell us who this group is and thank them?
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank the Conover Foundation. This is one of their specialties is they assist communities in acquiring needed equipment. And when they first reached out to the city and were proactive, the offer was of $10,000. The police department explained to them how much they would actually really need in order to get this piece of equipment, and they upped the grant to $15,000. So we definitely want to thank them. They do this in lots and lots of places and make a big difference in lots of communities.
And I guess I should know who they are. Are they?
Yes, sir.
Who are they?
It's the Conover Foundation.
Are they
Based-
local or?
I'm not sure where they're based out of, to be honest with you. I don't know if Miss Dana knows that or not. Yeah, I can bring Tyler in if
Do
you
they
want.
have a local business that we can support and help them help police department or?
Yeah, it's just the foundation itself. He may come in and be able to let me.
Yeah, he's coming.
Yeah.
Did you hear that conversation?
Yes, sir.
We're just curious if there's a way that we want to thank them, of course, and we want to help their business if we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of our Del Webb residents, Cheryl Stroud, is somehow connected with the Conover Foundation. They're a national organization, like Mr. Martin said, who reaches out to local governments just to see what they need. And we provided her with a list, and she responded back, well, we can only do 10,000. I just replied back about the tornado and about our need for road closure signs and this multiple event response trailer. And they granted us the 15,000 to purchase that trailer. So Cheryl, local Del Webb resident, we appreciate her support, which connects us with the Conover Foundation.
Okay, they're not a local business that we can go buy something and.
No, so they're not. They're a national organization.
Okay.
So I believe it's an endowment fund nationally.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor of 11.6 and accepting that donation, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next item is 11.7. An ordinance of the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget, property tax rate, and sewer rates for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. Is there a motion? I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments from the commission? I'll start by commending you all. It's a good budget. You've never heard me say 20 years. You've
Yes,
never heard me say that right off the bat.
Fair.
But
Can I go get a value? Sure.
I really appreciate it. It's very clear. It's well done. It's conservative, although that would be the only bone I would pick is given the circumstances that we're in. I think you're optimistic in some of your forecasting for the revenue side. Had I done it, I'd have been a little more conservative on the revenue side till we know where we're at. But thank you. It was a good, well done presentation.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. So now we'll get into it. Questions or comments on the budget? Y'all ready to vote?
I have a question.
Sure, let's go.
She had to ask some questions. The night of the budget workshop, when Deputy Chief Mullins went over his list, does that have to be tied into the budget Can we,
It's, those changes are in this budget. So everything that he presented, those changes, they're in here. They're already.
okay, like the distancing of the travel and,
No, that's not in here. No, I'm sorry.
And I
you
thought
meant
we
his-
were going to have that in here tonight too. I apologize. I didn't know you go far enough in.
okay, so we're not voting on that within this budget?
No.
Okay, because I was gonna have him come in and go over that again, but if it's not, then I won't worry about that.
Is it? I'm sorry. Are you done? Because I was going to ask, is that something that we're going to vote on, or is that a recommendation you want from us as to what to allow? Did you change the policy, or what?
Yeah, we'd have to change the ordinance because the ordinance reads now currently the mileage from the police station, and I believe it would have to change the ordinance.
Okay. I mean, after we talked the other night, well, I think most of us expected that would be on the agenda tonight. So I don't know why it's not.
It seemed, I didn't understand it that way. I thought we would have to add it.
Yeah, we usually, it's the workshop's just workshop, but somebody from the commission has to make that change at the.
So, but
No, you can
tonight
do
we
that.
would add the money and then change the ordinances.
Exactly. And we could bring the ordinance to the next thing. Just knowing on the front end, the commission supported the request through the police department. We could go ahead and make those changes in-house, go ahead and implement the process, then bring it back to you for an official vote. But we don't want to assume that until.
Well, let me get with you tomorrow then and give you some of my recommendations if it's okay. I think I talked to a couple of folks about that so we can have it on the next agenda.
Yeah.
Good. That's all right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Anybody else? Besides me? I would like to talk about the expansion, the dispatch and the generator and the things suggested for the grant.
Governor's grant.
I don't have a motion. I just would like to discuss it and get feedback.
I mean,
That's separate, of course, from the budget because it would be.
That's still
yeah,
separate from
Yes,
the,
ma'am.
okay, okay.
It's its own separate grant. So
Well,
it would be-
it was all done that night, so I'm
Yeah,
like.
the only thing that would
confused.
include, if the commission, we sent a list of recommendations because I wasn't going to recommend that the city spend $1.5 million at this particular point to do it, but working through the police department, they can add a hardened facility to the police department's current location far cheaper than we can move anything for about $300,000. And then Mr. Travis was also going to be asking for $200,000 for a generator regardless. That upgrade was needed at the police department because the current generator they've got will only power so many things, and they actually need a generator that would power everything. And so he already had that plan. So if you approve the list that we sent, we'd had the police, the hardened facility, I believe it was the fire truck, the AC units, and there's one of them I'm drawing a blank on. Out of those four, it'd be a difference of $18,000 out of the general fund, but everything else would be through the grant. And of course,
Okay.
none of that happens unless the grant is accepted. So
And- well, let me just get clarification. So that whole discussion on the $818,000 state grant is a separate discussion from the budget tonight?
It can be. You can
Should be.
vote to choose those projects and put it in the budget, and then I'll have it in there for second reading, or that can just be completely separate. And once those are decided upon, or even once they are approved by the state, we could amend the budget going forward. But right now, that's not in, the revenue's not in there and the projects aren't.
Have we received the revenue?
No, we have to apply for that. So we just need to know what projects you want us to apply to the state for. And then, which means I can either, once we get the list together, I can put the revenue and the projects in the budget, and then we'll apply and go through that process. Or you can tell us to apply, and then once we see what they're gonna approve, then we can come back with a budget amendment, adding the revenue and the projects in.
I mean, I would recommend that you apply and list every project that we identify, which it far exceeds the 818,000.
So you just want us to apply for all of those?
Are you needing to?
Well, we were wanting feedback on what you wanted us to.
your preference.
Yeah, your
preference.
preferences
Right,
for
but we
us to
can
go.
deal with that after we're awarded the grant.
Which
Well-
will be after the budget is passed
Yeah.
at the state government. I mean, they haven't even passed their budget yet for that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's a process. We could take those projects and take them to the state, and then once they come back approved, then we can bring them to you and say, these are what we asked for, and this is what we got approved for.
Well,
If you
sure.
would-
We should know what's approved by the state before we go wish listing.
Yeah. We just didn't know what,
Yeah.
we wanted your feedback on which projects are most important to you.
Yeah, I think
What
you
to ask for.
you all
List
sent
them
us a
all.
list that far exceeded 818,000. Ask the state, they may scratch off some of those.
Right, correct.
And that's information we would need to know before we go voting. And then once you come back with an approved list, rather than a recommended list, then
Okay.
we can make those
Yeah, we can do
selections.
that.
I would assume all of our projects meet their initial criteria.
I would think so.
So they would just give us the full grant and say, use it for your top priorities.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I would hope they would say.
So,
Okay.
So then we're clear if when we're awarded the grant, we bring it back, receive the funds, and then allocate how they be spent.
I don't know. I'll have to look to see if we are going to have to get the funds in advance or spend the money and ask for the funds for reimbursement. I'll have to
Ask for reimbursement.
verify that because I'm not sure how they're wanting to do that. I do know the funds won't be available until July 1st. So
Does that mean we would receive it then, or we'd
that's
receive
what I
it
need to verify.
approval then?
That means that the budget approves it and we will get them after that.
We will get the money after that.
Correct.
Right, that's what I thought. But the state still needs to pass the governor's budget.
Before that money is awarded to us or even approved to be awarded to us.
And they're not meeting.
Right.
They're not meeting.
I'm sorry.
They're not meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
There is that.
good point. Yeah.
So until they go back into session,
Well, we have the applications. They've sent those out. So we'll get those filled out and at least get them sent in and get in the queue for whenever that does become available.
okay. That sounds like the best way to handle that.
Mayor, I'm going to be leaving here in just a minute and stepping outside while y'all discuss some other things, I'm sure. And while I'm doing that, I'll make a phone call and verify the information.
Okay.
Well,
Let's see what.
can I
where
bring up
she's
one
going.
other thing before you go? I just would like to commend the city because of the effect on the economy with the COVID and everything, to just commend the city and the staff. And you work very hard, and I think you deserve raises. And you were willing to forego that in this budget, and I think you deserve it. And unless anybody else has anything to say, I would like to revisit this at some point, depending on the economy.
If I may, I also would ask that we talked about it and no COLA raises we're going to be given, but we've been through floods. We've been through tornado. We've been through the coronavirus, and God knows that now we're going through a budget. So 4 natural disasters right there. Okay. Given what's happened in our city and everything that we've had to deal with, and the fact that our employees are essential, every single one of you are essential. I don't know that it would be quite appropriate to do the entire raise as we have in the past, given financial situation. We're probably going to miss a couple of months of sales tax. But what I would like to do is to propose that we include 1.5% of merit raise for the employees. I mean, the employees, if anything, they have justified getting a merit increase. I don't think anybody can dispute that. I think there'll be some debate as to whether or not it can be afforded. You probably are the best source of information for us on that as to whether or not that's going to be something we can do.
I think it's doable. Yes.
You think that is doable
Mhm.
without hurting us financially?
I have, the estimated fund balance at the end of the year is $7 million. I think my 1.5 merit is reasonable.
Well, I personally got out and was cutting trees and doing everything I could do during the tornadoes, and I can't tell you the number of employees that I saw out there doing the exact same thing. They worked their tails off, and they have never complained. You've not heard anything out of them, and anything that we can do for them, I feel like we need to do for them.
Yeah.
Our police officers work, some of them we're working extended shifts, walking through wires that were down in Arking, trying to get two people to get them rescued. Our firefighters, I mean, those guys were unbelievable what they accomplished. They deserve it. If there was any way possible, we can give it to them.
Other comments?
Is that a motion?
Actually, I would like to, if it does need an amendment, I believe that's what I would make, would be a 1.5% merit increase.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Justice. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I'm probably going to be in the minority on this vote. But I totally agree with the sentiment that folks have worked extremely hard, that they probably deserve it. But my issue is going to be that the public who pays these salaries, every single person but one that I know is either laid off or they've had their hours cut. And I know people who are on salary, and their boss walked up and just said, "You're taking a 15% pay cut. You're taking a 20% pay cut." It wasn't a negotiation. It was just a mandate. So I'm going to side on the side of the citizens and say they're suffering. I know, and they work hard too. But I know the city employees have worked really hard. But I just think it sends a really bad message to the public, to the citizens, the people that vote for us, that we give a raise when their pay is going down. And then a second point that I would raise is simply the fact that we don't know where we're at. I know you're projecting a healthy, you don't know.
Unfortunately, nobody knows.
And in the government publication that we get, which was dated last week, it specifically warns against what we're doing. Local government revenues and budgeting is the title of the article. And it says municipal budgets will be strained. Economists caution local governments to plan budgets based on either no revenue growth or even year-over-year reductions for the fiscal year beginning July 1. I would not be opposed to revisiting this 3 months from now, 6 months from now, but to do it now and not know where we're at, to do it now and not know where the citizens are at financially, they're going to take a pay cut and we're going to give out raises. I can't go there. So I'll be voting against the motion, but it's no reflection on the city employees. It is simply a reflection on the pain and suffering that the private sector is going through right now. Do you have something?
Yeah, I want to comment on that too. I have to agree with Ed, and I agree with Ray too on everything he said about our employees. There's none like them. We all know that. But if y'all go back, I think on Channel 4, they interviewed this guy, and he talked about the employees of Nashville working from home and not getting any kind of pay cut, and et cetera, while he had to get a pay cut, or everybody he knew did, but yet the government didn't. And I think that we set a precedent out here by doing that. I've talked to one or two employees that says, it would be all right to revisit. Maybe they understand and we could revisit that later, which is this 3 months or 6 months or whatever you're talking about. And at that time, maybe we would know a little bit more about the economy. So I'm concerned about that. I mean, we don't know. And even coming in here tonight, I had a discussion out in the parking lot about, with all the influx of people, all of a sudden it's going out and shopping and all of these crowds. And, hopefully we can pray and hope and believe and hope for the best. But all these people are all of a sudden all back out again. A lot of people's not wearing masks.
None of us.
And so,
and let me clarify, I'm not going to.
And hopefully we won't see an increase. But what if we do? And what if it's worse than it was before? We're going to have to combat that, and we're going to have to address that and embrace that. So I think we need to really take the conservative approach to it.
So, other comments?
I have a
Go ahead, Jen.
question. How much money are we talking for the 1.5 across the board?
$145,000.
145,000. And I just have one statement for the public. This in no way includes any of us sitting up here on this board a raise. This does not include the elected body.
No.
So we are not I am not advocating for any of us to get a raise. So please don't misunderstand. This is for our city staff and all the city departments.
6 months and is all it took you to become a politician.
Wow.
All right, other comments?
Yes, sir. If I may, I will say this. I respect both of you for what you say, and I do respect the conservative, the approach that you're wanting to take. But $145,000, if we are in that dire shape, then we've got bigger issues than that. I will say that the employees and the private sector, that they are, some of them lost their jobs, some of them are been furloughed, some of them laid off. We're trying to get back to normal. Haven't gotten there yet, but during this entire process, the people who work for the city of Mountain Juliet have continued the essential processes and programs. I mean, the sewers still working. Our police officers are still out there protecting us. Our firefighters are still out there. They've never let down, not once. Our parks department is second to none. They've stepped up and have worked all the way through every process we've had. Good Lord, we've had, like I said, floods, then a tornado, now a virus. They're called essential employees for a reason. And I don't think there's any employee here, from the person who digs the ditches to the person who runs the city, that is not an essential employee. So, and I think you need to take that into consideration. Keep in mind, I'm retired from the Wilkes County Sheriff's Department. I was the guy that was out there, running around the streets and doing everything I could do back many years ago. And, guys, it's not an easy job to do. And we need to take that into consideration. I don't anticipate that I've changed either one of y'all's minds by that statement.
We don't disagree. I'll speak for me. I don't disagree with a single thing you said.
I don't think you're doing this out of malice at all. You're just trying to protect, and I understand and respect.
And the people that I really feel for more than even the ones I named is really the small business owners. I know the perception is that they make a lot of money. It's not true. By the time they pay all those bills, they barely are making it, and the government shut them down for 6-8 weeks. I mean, I suspect some of them can't survive, and then they're certainly not getting a pay raise. I hope they survive.
That has anything to do with the other.
But they're the ones that pay they're
the
the ones that pay the taxes.
Sure. And they're the ones also that expect services to be rendered. I tell you what, you think they're in a mess now, send about half of our people home, see how big a problem you have.
We didn't send anybody home.
That's my point. Exactly.
Have we laid off any city employees?
I think we temporarily laid off some part-time parks employees.
Have we cut anyone's pay?
No.
Have we reduced anyone's hours?
No.
Okay. All those things are happening on the private sector.
So in other words, all the services that have been provided are still being provided. There has not been any glitch in services at all.
No.
I think we're making each other's points.
Well,
Vice Mayor,
I'm one of those that works in the private sector, and on the overall, I've been blessed and lucky through all of this. I don't know if but at the same time, I've got the phone call to let me know that things aren't going to be the way they were, and the some of the stuff that was promised was off the table. So I felt the impact of the downturn in several ways. I understand that, but at the same time, I understand here what our employees do and go through. If voting against this merit increase would put a dime back into somebody's pocket that's suffering or hurting, then I'd vote against it. But at this point, it's not denying them a merit increase. It's not going to fix the suffering businesses or somebody like myself who's not going to get what they were promised. So it's not going to fix my situation. But at the same time, I think about this as a long-term thing. Our problems with COVID-19, they're not going away tomorrow. They're not going away next week. But I don't believe they're going to be around forever. And I believe the city is going to rebound, and we are going to come back. I just kind of want to take a long-term approach for this and make sure that those people that are working so hard for us right now are going to be here in the long run. So it's my 2 cents on it.
Okay.
If I may, one thing I want to get clear, and it's not necessarily about this, but I want to ask Ms. Hire, if I could, please. You and I had a conversation recently, and you were talking about having the conversation with the comptroller for the state of Tennessee. And his remarks were how well positioned we were as opposed to many others in our state. Can you share some of that conversation? You don't have to do the whole thing, but just to.
Well, because you guys are incredibly conservative and have been over the years, you are in a position where you have a great deal of reserves. You use those to cover your capital projects, which is why you were able to get so many projects done so quickly. For example, the Town Center Trail. So being that conservative for so long has put you in a position that I, based on what I'm seeing, feel that you will be able to survive this glitch and this whatever this corona does, this little hump, and it won't last forever. It will come back. So it does put you in that position. And the person I spoke to at the comptroller's office, he agreed. He felt like we were in a good position to get through this.
And I don't disagree with that either. I do read the news and see what Nashville people are facing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even imagine what a slap in the face that is to all those private sector people to be looking at a tax hike of that magnitude when they've lost their jobs. And I know we can, quote unquote, afford it and we'll probably come through fine, but it sends a really bad message, for me at least, to those who are hurting, those who have lost their job, taken pay cuts, lost hours, all those things, sends a horrible message that you're not part of this group that gets rewarded during this time. So
I will add one note, since it is merit that you're talking about and not a COLA. This is a merit is not a July 1st bonus. It is a December bonus. So they would not see any increase until December for a merit increase. So just to have that note.
yeah.
So worst case scenario could be revisited.
I didn't even think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it is. I didn't think about that.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Would you vote, Art?
Nay.
Okay, that amendment does pass 3-2. Other topics? Anyone else?
I would like to discuss the parkland purchases.
Yes, sir.
So currently we have an amount of,
You got the parks director in here as well.
okay,
Where is? I thought it was.
Okay. Commissioner, go ahead.
currently we have an amount of 4 properties we're looking at. The Wintry, the old golf course, the Cedar Creek Sports Center property, the Tomlinson property off of Beckwith, and the McCullough Baltz property off of Golden Bear, north of East Division. So we in the amount of $6,700,000, if I get it right, $6,775,000 in the neighborhood. I would like to make a motion that we send the Wintry property through planning, and we send the McCullough property through Public Works, since that involves sewer and that can go through the proper channels. And then to go ahead and approve the Cedar Creek property and the Tomlinson property with the purchase without having to borrow money out of the hotel motel tax.
I'll second because I've got questions.
Okay.
When you say send it through Public Works, are you looking
Well,
for recommendations from them?
I just would like for it to go through the proper channels, since it,
Okay.
instead of us approving the purchase when it's questionable, even from, I'll let you, Rocky, why don't you
Yes, ma'am. With the
elaborate?
McCullough property, the trouble we ran into there when Kenny and I met with the owner, there were so many moving parts to that. There was questions there we couldn't answer, like concessions that the city would need to make. And when we got those questions, I could not answer those, so we stepped away from that property. And not knowing what full concessions were, we just knew concessions were on the table. The other three were straight out buys.
Well, don't you think we need to address those concessions before a decision's made on the parkland?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I mean, basically what the commission decides tonight on what you buy or don't buy, I hate to say there's not necessarily a rush. Of course, the property's for sale, somebody could buy it. But you could also say, hey, put a contract on a piece of property or a letter of intent or whatever, but yet still to be determined at a later date. What made a couple of the properties a little unique, instead of somebody saying, I was directed to ask the couple of these property owners, all of them actually, what would be your sales price? Two of them just basically said, here's the price. Here's our final price. The other two, they're a little more complicated because they were asking, for example, whatever space or land they sold the city would be calculated into their open space or green space. And those are things, of course, as a staff, we can't decide. So I want to make you aware of that. There's maybe some determination about maybe sewer in exchange for the purchase of the property, which we can't make that determination either. So maybe a good recommendation would be to say to let the commission study on what they feel like is the best and then direct us to where some of them can't move forward until their projects move forward is the impression I got from talking to them. I know that's hard to articulate, but basically I don't know what that other side's going to look like. I have a sort of a general idea of what it would look like, but not with a final idea. And some of the commissioners may have, know from past history, it's not just an outright buy, for example, with the Balts. I think Balts is a great piece of property. I think it's centrally located in the city of Mount Juliet. And there's no rush to do anything, at least from a city staff standpoint. We were just following up basically from the directive that was given to go negotiate these properties. There were four that was in there. Two was just, hey, here's what we want. The other two, there really wasn't a direct correlation to a price per se, but hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? And that involves additional conversation. So that may be the recommendation that the commission chooses to go with, is just wait a little while, have some further conversations about those other properties to see if that is indeed what the commission wants us to do. We're fine with that. We're absolutely fine with that. Just the reason we put it on this is because we couldn't not include it in the budget. Of course, we can't make any expenditures without the commission approving it. So if it's the will of the commission, we'll be glad to get additional information. But it's going to be to learn more about those projects and what their long-range plan is for those properties. I know that's hard to articulate and explain, but when you're talking to these property owners, and it's not just an outright, hey, here's what we want for a property, you buy this. That's one thing. A lot of it's tied to future development and sewer and things of that nature.
Are you speaking of one of the four properties, or are you speaking of multiple?
Two of the four that was
What's the other one?
The golf course property was one, Wintry, and then the other was the Balls property.
Okay.
The two outright sales, and I get it, they're more complicated because there's future plans there for development, where these other properties, there's no pending potential even at this point of something going there that we're aware of. Now, could they sell? Yes, but the other two properties have been kicking around development proposals for years, as everybody knows. It's those
what
two
are
pieces.
the specifics of are we voting? You have a motion.
I have a motion.
You seconded. Are we voting on whatever those contingencies are too?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
What are we voting? I don't understand.
I would like to have Wintry go through planning to be considered, and for us not
for study. You're
For
asking
study.
it to be studied.
to be
Oh.
studied.
I would have thought that already been done before it got to this point, but.
Yeah. Well, the study is, and I may be misunderstanding the commissioner, but there isn't anything to take to the planning commission until they've got a proposal on the table for what they foresee developing on their property.
Is that imminent or is that?
No, sir, I don't know that it's imminent, but that was part of the conversation. I think they were just sitting idle until I reached out to them per the direction of the commission. And it's like, well, hey, sure, we'd entertain something with the city, but we don't know what that'll look like with one. And then the other is, I think there's been some talk possibly through the planning process, but not at planning commission level, of potential projects on the golf course. And then the other part would be sold to the city. And there's, of course, some concerns there that's been discussed about, okay, would it be just a park directly for this particular subdivision if it developed in the front? What would the densities look like? What are they planning on building there? What road improvements would be done on Oliver Road all the way down to Lebanon Road? Because if everybody remembers before, the project that came before the city and the city commission and the planning commission is that there were certain requirements they were going to do, including a roundabout at one point, for example, Wintry. And that project ultimately failed over time. And so I don't know what that project's going to look like if they're going to come back. Well, I wish I could answer that, but until they submit and go to the planning commission, we just don't really know. And I think it's like I hate to say it's like, hey, what if we did this and the city did this, and it just hadn't got there yet. I know that's a terrible answer, but we just don't have enough information about those other properties.
Are they saying the sale is contingent upon?
In some ways, yes, sir.
Are they examples or that you can share? Or?
Yeah, one would be one that was leading. Again, these were just ideas that were being pitched because the conversation was, basically not that we're not being serious, but there's not. I can't just make an offer and say we'll give you $2 million for the property. In one case, the owner talked about some other, open space being used for their overall development. That would be the parkland if we acquired that land. It also had
Wintry did.
No, Wintry was the more open space.
Okay, I was asking specifically about Wintry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It wasn't clear, but to me, Baltz just seems a lot more complicated than the other three. I may be wrong. It would also be my most favorite parcel based on its proximity, but I don't know that we get there on that one. But Wintry, for example, what was the contingencies on?
Yeah, and they weren't specific per se because it's unknown depending upon the development process. But the impression I got from the conversations, sometimes those conversations can be somewhat vague because they're not they're showing you their entire hand, I guess you'd say, is that one big thing would be the price of the property was discussed, but yet it was contingent upon if they could use the property that the city purchased in the open space of whatever development they approved, if they got the zoning that they were desiring with the densities.
But was that Baltz or Wintry?
That was Wintry.
Okay.
What density are they wanting?
Yeah, they didn't get into that. And we tried to
Because they've
get
had
that.
a plan in here with multifamily. I don't think.
Exactly. And I think this one, the impression I got, this would be more single family, and the houses were actually reduced, but it's still whether or not they sold to the city and did this dependent upon. So our question with that, of course, is would we have a road? Would we have access to the property? And so when we said it had a lot of tentacles attached to it, it's because there was just some unknowns that no matter how much we asked, they weren't quite yet in a position to answer because they were still working through the development process, if that makes sense. For example, I agree, both these properties in a lot of ways would be great. I can't say otherwise, but I couldn't come to you with the direct, and that's why I say if it's patience to wait, but I was directed to come back with, hey, here are the 4 properties and here's where we're at with them. If this commission's desire, since there isn't a rush to wait and see what these developers come, basically make them to come to the table and say, be specific with us exactly what you want. That would help with the other two. For example, the Balch property was more about running sewer and then open space and what that would look like. Well, we don't know yet because I'm not sure from where the sewer would run to and at what point it would run to this development. Would it run through the entire front? There's some pros to that as well, of course, because if you run sewer, it helps with future development on that very land and other land that's in between. So it's hard to give a perfectly concise, clear explanation just simply because no matter how hard we try at this point, we can't get all those details from those particular properties. Not that they're trying to hold out, they just don't know yet.
Well, sure, I get that.
I just think there's too many unanswered questions on those 2 properties.
Yeah.
A potential development on Wintry, which I know nothing about. And the other two, Cedar Creek and Tomlinson, to me, are just clear cut purchases. So that's the reason I'm.
Can I, as a clarifying point, when you said planning, were you talking about the planning department or planning commission?
Department.
Okay, so you're wanting the planning department's
Okay.
feedback on that.
Mhm.
I thought you meant planning commission.
I did too.
Yeah.
Could I make just a suggestion, since there is no rush to this? And I understand that there's lots of things attached to it and the property's for sale, I get all that, is that I reach out to these folks tomorrow and say, I've really got to know a whole lot more information. And it may be that they're in no rush. And if that's the case, I can report back to you and say, they're just not ready, and have that information for you by the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if they're, and you've been around a long, you know how this works. If they're proposing a development, they're going to be investing dollars,
Mhm.
hard dollars, into making some kind of pitch to us, a
Yes.
proposal. If they say, hey, we're not ready to do that, we can't force their hand. I mean, we just have to accept that and go on.
Exactly.
You
And
know?
that may be the case with this. If, say, for example, Balls, I don't know of anything pressing, but they may not be divulging and everything, which I respect. But if I come back to the commission and say, okay, I reached out to them, they just don't know yet, but here's what they said. If we'll run sewer to the property, and here's what we estimated that price to look like, and here's the calculated open space they would want from our property included into their calculations, that may be easy, but I just hadn't got that yet.
Okay.
And we've tried. And matter of fact, one of the property owners was very honest and said, just to be honest with you, I haven't done a whole lot on that.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts.
Exactly. And everybody's, we got tornadoes and COVID, lots of things. So a lot of people got other things that they're focused on. So
Can we ask the parks director? I mean, specifically on Windtree, because that seems, and if you have anything to add on Balls.
On the Boss property, like I said, there were so many moving parts on that. When we went out there and talked to him, we just kind of lost interest, and it was out of our budget. And we weren't budgeted for Boss properties also. We had 3 pieces of land that were very attractive to us. We thought we could reach out and we could fund that buying of those 3 tracts of land, and they could be used almost immediately. And that was where our interest lay.
Yeah.
What, 3?
And Windtree, and I think that's one of your 3.
Yes.
Because that was your
It
number
was
one
Windtree,
recommendation.
Cedar Creek, and the McCulloch property. I mean, the Thomason property. I'm sorry.
But, the city manager's saying that there's other things tied into it, and I wasn't aware of any other tie-ins.
I wasn't aware of this either with meeting with Mr. Myers and them. What we did, we sliced out a 70-acre tract from the old clubhouse all the way to the creek, and they gave us a price. And now Kenny's talked to them a lot more than I have, but I have met with them a couple times.
That's possible, but
And that's what my understanding was. There were 70 acres there for $2.3 million, and it was available. And that was the last deal I have. Now Kenny's talked to them more than I have, but my understanding was that there was no contingencies that I understood.
Yeah, that was news to me, is why I'm asking if they were contingencies on that one. I was aware of Balls, but not Windtree.
Well, I'm very interested in the development that's going to go there as well. And I put a lot of stock in what Jennifer Hamlin, the city planner, says. I rely on her heavily on all this zoning and things like that. So that was one of the reasons for my motion to send Windtree through her.
And I agree with the vice mayor. I mean, Balls is every piece of property got pros and cons. Balls is the premier piece. It's the largest piece, best price per acre, apparently, and access on a major highway, which the others, you don't have that really, and the most potential for good usage. If it's off the table, though, we need to move on, and then I'd be looking next at the Windtree property.
Right.
But I need a whole lot more information about this potential contingency or whatever they're calling it, or whatever that is.
Yeah, I would have recalled.
I couldn't possibly be ready to say, hey, I'm going to scratch my number 1 property off the list because it's too difficult, and I'll go to number 2 property, which is almost as difficult. And then I'm not willing to scratch that off and go to my number 3 property.
Yeah.
And forego the 2 what I believe are the better ones, you know. I don't know. I'm not sure what to do with it. What do y'all want to do with the motion? You want to vote on, what is the motion?
The motion is to send Winthrop through planning because I am interested in the development.
You want feedback from the planning
To
department.
get feedback.
Okay.
To be studied.
Okay.
Through planning. And then since the McCullough property involves sewer, I would like it to go through Andy and the proper channels there. From what I understand, they're wanting the city to put in the sewer.
I don't know.
Just too many.
That's exactly what we were saying. It's looking like the concessions the city's going to make there could be in the millions. And that's the reason we stepped back. We couldn't answer the questions they had about concessions. That would have to come from y'all. And it's above my pay grade to step into that line and start answering those questions for them.
That's, to me, it's like, it looks pretty, but when you started considering what the price might be on that and sewer concessions, which
Yeah.
it was unclear whether we can be giving sewer concessions in lieu of parkland, with that being a dedicated fund or an enterprise fund. I was like, I don't even know where to go on there. But, and I assume that's why it was dropped last place, more or less, from your list on it.
Yes,
was, and I wasn't aware of any other strings on Wintry other than
Well,
purchase.
Yeah.
and all four properties together involve a $5 million loan. I personally don't want to borrow money. So that's one reason for my motion, is because the money is in the hotel motel tax. So the public knows this is Parks and Recs are funded by hotel motel tax. Nothing else comes out of that fund except Parks and Recs. And since the Cedar Creek and the Tomlinson, to me, seems like a simple purchase and the money is there, go ahead and purchase those two and let the other two go through the proper channels and be studied.
Well, I'm almost with you on that. I mean, in a sense, and this is James's view of these parks properties. I look at Wintry Trace as having the most upside and probably one of the quickest turnarounds for the city. I know we got parking already there. The trails are already in place, and it's beautiful land, and you can do things with it. I see Cedar Creek as being right there too. I know the Parks Board, I've heard discussions of putting some fields with backboards in place, and that's not far off. There's not a lot of infrastructure to put in. We're not got a long distance to travel. We've got working with the owner now about parking in place. Those are all there. I mean, there's just crossing the T's and dotting the I's on that. But it sounds like there's more to the Wintry than I was aware of. But circling back to the third piece, the Tomlinson property, to me, it is priced very well, and it's setting just outside the city. But for me, this looked like an opportunity, and this is something in Mount Juliet. No one's making new land. I mean, it is what it is out there. And this was an opportunity for this board to purchase some land that's sitting out there and at least get us kind of caught up on where we need to be roughly with what the recommendations are for park space. And that, I saw Tomlinson as something that it's got some infrastructure concerns to get to it. It's going to have to have a road put in. Utilities aren't there, but have it there for the future because it's an investment in our future as a city. And unless I'm mistaken, I don't see the demand for moving here in Mount Juliet and West Wilson County slowing down anytime. So it's kind of my thoughts on this. Cedar Creek seemed to be straightforward. Same thing with the Tomlinson purchase. It just didn't seem to be park ready today.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
If I may, that's one of the options we put in the email we sent you earlier today. We tried to put 3 options in there for you to look at. One was we could just write a check for the Thompson property and Cedar Creek. We talked to Wintry, and they are open to owner financing. And we could owner finance that and pay with that through the motel tax. And they are open to doing something like that. But that is one of the options we've also looked at.
Yeah, but if they're open, if there's some other strings involved as far as development is concerned. We would need a contract and show what those requirements are. We couldn't just buy something without knowing
We're
contractually.
a month away on second reading, roughly. Is that something that can be nailed down on that piece?
Yeah, we can nail this down in a couple of days, excuse me. But that's what I'm saying. Those two tracks there would be ready. The wind tree, I thought y'all could use it as you talk to the developers coming in, and that could be part of your plan with the development coming in on the owner finance loan.
I'm not crazy about borrowing money.
Well, it's in the budget, $5 million bond issue for parks. I'm not for that either. In fact, I'm going to make a motion in a minute to take it out. And I certainly don't think owner financing is really, it's just painting it a different color. It's the same thing. It's a bond issue. And when you say we're going to pay for it out of hotel motel revenue,
Yes, sir.
they just got crushed. There was nobody. There were 6 rooms taken, I know, in one particular hotel during the month because of the travel issues and the COVID and everything.
All we're trying to do, Mr. Mayor, right now is try to get Mount Juliet up to
I
what
know.
park tax asked for.
And I'm on your
I
side,
understand.
but I'm not going to put the city at financial risk
And
when we're
I
in this predicament,
appreciate that.
and their revenues aren't going to. I know it's going to come back.
Right.
I'm optimistic. I know Mount Juliet's going to do well. Maybe a while before the hotel traffic comes back. People are a little skittish, you know. So to do a bond issue or owner financing and believing that the hotel revenue is going to come in to pay for it, I could maybe get there with that conversation 6 months from now when I see a trend line. I can't get there today with you. It's no way. In fact, I'd almost label that as a little bit over the edge, crazy to do that.
Mayor,
So,
can I read?
now, keep in mind, I'm the guy that teaches, Dave Ramsey stuff at my church too. So I'm not doing it unless we got the money.
I understand.
And I know we got the money.
Mayor, can I read just a couple of things that were on the letter that I gave everybody a packet at the last workshop we had in Parkland? There's a total of about 8 to 9 things on the list. One of them, just to give you an example, it says the parkland will become a part of the Wintry Pines PUD and remain a part of the required open space calculations for the project. The latest PUD layout plan not yet including the King property and the park area to be conveyed if depicted as the hatched area on the attached exhibit. That's just one. Another is example, the parties would split the closing costs, things of that nature. Purchase price 2.32 million, 58 acres, 12 acres donated. That's just one of several things that we're getting examples of. It's just not, here's the price. And the same with the vaults. And so that's where we came to that conclusion. I don't know if you guys still have those lists in front of you. Another would be the area to be purchased would be accessed by a public street built as part of the Wintry Pines project and dedicated to the city once construction is completed. So the reason I couldn't commit to a price on the front end is those are all unknowns that would have to go through the planning commission, be approved by not only the planning commission, of course, the board of commissioners. So that's what we meant about lots of moving parts. It's just not, here's what we'll say the project is that. It'd be, I hate to say a no-brainer. It would be a whole lot easier to just say, here's 4 properties, here's what they want to sell them and go. But that's just a perfect example. And the other is similar to that. So,
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, we have an amendment on the table. I think I'm going to state it right. You're to study Wintry through the planning department. You're to study Balts through the public works department. And then was there more to it, or is that it?
Just to outright purchase Cedar Creek and Tomlinson through the motel, cut a check because the money's there.
What are the prices on those tracks?
There's a 975 and 1.5. It'll be right, what, 2.475.
Has there been any study on those tracks by the planning department or the public works department to determine their feasibility and
We haven't
suitability?
had any studies on, we've been on it, and we've got future plans for it, but no, sir, no, I don't think any planning has been done on it from the planning department.
You want those studied instead?
Mm-mm.
You just want to buy them cold without knowing what's there?
Well, I mean, he submitted plans to us. So.
What if there's some kind of waste on that property that needs to be removed?
Well, I'm just going by the maps that I saw, and he may build some kind of little commercial thing at the front, next to the road. But other than that, the back part's a flood zone. You can't build anything there. So it would be perfect for
Right.
parks. So
We've been on both tracks. We walked every inch of both tracks, and both tracks look excellent to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
I-
of course,
Do we
I'm
have
not
a study from the planning department?
no, sir,
or the
we have
Public
not
Works
had any
Department?
study from the planning department. No, sir. We have not.
Okay, I'm confused why we're asking for 2 of the 4 properties to get these studies and the other 2 not.
Well, one, the Wintry involves a development, potentially houses, townhomes, whatever. I haven't seen anything on it. So to me, there's just too many unanswered questions, and because I want to know what the development is and how this land, which is in the back of all that, is going to tie in to zoning and all that. I just, like I said, I rely heavily on Jennifer Hamlin, and the boss is just too many unanswered questions with the sewer.
Okay, so we're going to study 2 and we're going to outright purchase 2 without any study. That's what I'm hearing.
So what are you wanting? What, planning to review it?
Well,
Works to
if
review
we're
it?
going to study 2, we ought to study the other 2 and get some facts. Who knows what's on that project? It could have been a chemical waste dump at one point in time.
What we could do.
We don't know that.
Yeah, and one thing we could do, which we would require with any sale, is
Gino?
go through the real estate committee. And the other would be that phase 1 environmental studies would have to be done as part of the contingency purchase.
Gino, you buy and sell land as represent. You don't buy this coal?
Tonight was budget for particular items, and I'm assuming it'd be subject to a valid contract and contingencies satisfied, such as the phase 1 survey meets all your needs, et cetera, and so forth. I'm somewhat surprised that hadn't taken place at this point.
I would think that we would look at all 4 of them and see which ones would be off when we get all the information, whether even the vaults, which is, I think, number 1 in everybody's mind, but there's too much unknown, as well as Wintry. So, but I think we should look at all of them at the same time, because we may just want to purchase 1 instead of 2, or 2 more instead of, it may come back and we try to get Wintry and one of these or something. I don't know.
This is to budget the money. It still have to come back to this board after. And I mean, we could back out if we found chemical waste or
Yeah, I would assume it would go through
unicorns
the
or
regular
whatever
process.
What this does, not necessarily to buy it, our directive coming back, and I know this is all kind of confusing, was just to come back and say, here's the 4 properties and here's what the findings were. If the commission was to say, hey, don't do anything right now, do conditional studies, or come back to us, we can do contracts that are contingent upon lots of things. Matter of fact, there was one other situation we didn't do a contract on the public works thing. It worked out okay, but it was more of a gentleman's agreement. Hey, we'll make one at some point, and it ended up selling. So if the commission said, hey, just put a contract contingent on all these things, we could do that or do nothing right now. I don't think there's necessarily a rush. I just want to get back to the information we had to date, so you ought to have an opportunity to think on it. I agree that the Parks Board's looked at it, the Parks Director's looked at it, but I agree there's other hurdles yet to be cleared. I just wanted to get a directive from the commission. If you had priority list, and if you felt like, hey, these 2 for sure, or hey, might not. It looks like to me that we're not quite there yet. We need to get a little more information on these other 2 properties, then come back to the commission with more information. And I'm gonna have to basically call these 2 property owners and say, I've got it in writing what they're saying, but I can't answer that until it goes to the planning commission, if that makes sense. In other words, they're not ripe for the picking yet. But I could say, hey, what would you just sell it to us without all these attachments, for example? Does that make sense? There's no rush in doing it. I just want to get a directive from the commission.
Yeah, I thought we would have had study work done on all these tracks and have some kind of prioritization. I mean, if we go ahead and buy 2 of these properties tonight, then we want to study other properties, we're out of money. And then we are borrowing money. If you buy according to your motion, if you buy the two properties, the Sports and the Tomlinson, that uses up every penny that we have.
What is the balance of the fund?
It should be close to 3 million by the end of this
Two-
year.
2.8.
2 yeah.
And so that's right at, by the time you do a little improvement stuff, you're over. You're already over.
Mayor, I have an idea if the
So,
commission.
well, hang on. I
Yeah.
mean, then you come back and you say, hey, this wind tree is a great thing. Their concessions are this and this, and they're extremely doable. But then you say you don't want to borrow money. We can't even buy it anyway. We're out of money unless we borrow. So I think we need a lot of study
Mhm.
before we jump out and make a multi-million-dollar
Yeah,
purchase.
if the commission could give us a blessing, because we didn't earmark monies for some of the studies and some of those things, of course, surveys and phase 1, phase 2 those cost monies. If the commission would support it, we could go ahead and do that out of some monies we could find, I guess, somewhere, maybe out of this fund, the Parks Fund. And we could go ahead and do those studies. That way we need that anyways
How about
before
we just get some basic hard information at our next reading. I don't even have a map on any of these properties. Not even a map in front of me. Just basic stuff.
Yeah.
Road network. What's the road like getting to some of these? I have no idea.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, we'll vote on the motion if you want, but I can't
Okay.
support it.
I mean, I'm using common sense here. You wouldn't be cutting a check tonight. It would have to go
No.
through the normal process, go through a second reading. And then even if you did go through the realtor and whoever, I mean, isn't all of that study and the environmental, isn't that part of the process?
Yes, that would be part of
Anyway?
the process
Yeah.
anyways, that we require a lot of times them to provide those documents before we close. And it would just be, contract contingent upon.
Yeah. I mean, it's just part of a purchase.
Well, this is to allocate money we already have sitting there,
Uh-huh.
and you're not going to go out and purchase the land as soon as this budget passes without doing the due diligence, going through it, bringing the contract back to the BOC for
Yes.
review.
Yes.
Gino signing off on it, umpteen ways from sundown, and
Yeah.
all the other ways. Well, however many ways from sundown you do it, Gino.
But these are specific allocations of that.
Yes, they are. They're very
That's the only
specific.
thing. I don't mind allocating the money because I want the parkland wherever it is. If it's these two that Jennifer's referring to, or if it's the vaults, or if it's the other one. So I don't have a problem allocating. We want to do that. We need the parkland. I'm not for sure about specifics until we have more information. But I understand. I mean, I want to buy. We need to. We've got the money for it. But I think we need to look at all of them to come up with a better decision with the variables that you're going to get for us.
Yes. And I can do that, where I just didn't want to expend any funds until the commission had prioritized the list. And I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, buy these. It was to come back with the directive I'd received about, here's the 4 and here's where we're at this particular
But
point.
it's-
Not necessarily.
It's a catch-22. If you don't spend the funds to find the information out, then we can't vote on it
Mhm.
because we don't know the information that we don't have. And then if you do spend the funds, then you never got permission to spend the funds. So I don't know how to move forward other than just
If I could get permission
I
to
don't know that anybody's asking you to spend phase 1 and phase 2 money.
just
Give me a map. Give me some road network. Give me
Can
some
we
comments
not
from
put a
planning.
contract out for the
Give me
intent to
some
buy?
comments on what you would do with the property,
I
what
thought
your
we'd send them out
ideas
today.
are, what the improvements are,
Didn't we get those
what
out
those
today?
cost.
They were out today. You got an email from the Parks Board.
I got an email today.
yeah.
Sir,
I've been in meetings
Hey,
since
Ron.
2:00.
okay. I'm just saying, they were there.
Yeah, there's no rush. Let's just push it to the next meeting. We'll get some additional information. I don't know if at the last meeting I put a packet for everybody at the table, but it could have been that you guys didn't realize that was for you guys to take with you. But I'll make new packets and get those to you.
And I think planning should say, hey, this is on a 4-lane road. This is a pro.
Mhm. We can do that.
And
We can do that. We can do
Con
all
is
that in-house without phase 1 and phase 2 and those things. We can do that from city planner standpoint. All tonight really was is just to say,
Okay, well,
if there's a priority, and it's like all 4 of them right now are priority, if we can just work out the details.
okay. Yes, please.
To send the Wintry property through the planning department to be studied and to provide feedback.
on that potential development? Because I would like to know what the idea is of what would go there, whether it's single homes, townhomes, apartments.
Okay. And then McCullough would go through Public Works for sewer and feedback.
Yeah, because it's my understanding they're asking us to fund a sewer through there.
Well, I think that they could give the price of that, what it would cost to Kenny in his discussion with them and what they would want. So that's good.
And that was the entire motion.
No.
Well, to proceed with the purchase
Okay.
with the other two properties without borrowing money. Whereas all of them would require a loan, which I'm not for.
Proceed with purchase of other two properties without a loan.
Got it?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Nay. That is a 2-2. That fails. I will make a third amendment to the budget that will delete the $5 million bond issue that is currently in the budget. Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments on the amendment? All in favor of deleting the $5 million potential bond issue, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's passed unanimously. Other comments on the budget?
Well, your motion failed.
Right.
So I think it should still go through those two departments that you said, those first two. But it's not going to unless you make that motion again.
I think all four are going through the
Okay.
process, is what I understood the city manager to
Yes.
understand the directive.
Yeah, we'll meet with planning. I just spoke to the parks director. So we're basically getting an opinion from Jennifer, we'll get an opinion from Mr. Barlow about the roadway projects. And of course, we've already got it from the Parks Board and the Parks Director. So then it's just a matter of me reaching back out to the other two property owners and seeing if they've got a timeline on when they'd want to present. But I'll make everybody another packet and get that to you before you leave
Is that
tonight.
okay?
Yeah, so there's no further motion I need to do or anything. You're just
No, I can
gonna,
do it, yeah.
Okay.
That's all I need is just some direction. That's it.
okay.
Other comments on the budget?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. All in favor of the budget as twice amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The budget passes first reading unanimously with two amendments.
Actually, I'm abstaining.
I'm sorry? That budget passes 4 votes for, none against, 1 abstention. Next item is 11A, an ordinance approving the amendment of the Mount Juliet City Charter and authorizing such amendment to be placed on the August 6, 2020 ballot for a referendum vote. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second? I'll second. Questions or comments from the commission?
I need to make an amendment, and then I'd like to talk about this,
Okay.
why it's come up, et cetera, or how I've been thinking about it. When we put this, I put mayor on here. In actuality, I need to make an amendment to take the mayor out and put municipality elected office. And it would also go in number 5. Sheila, am I getting that right? I had my letter and it was, anywhere it says the line, the mayor it would be replaced with municipality elected office. So that's the amendment.
I'll second. Questions or comments on the amendment?
I have a question. Well, not a question. I did not like the way it stated mayor because you're singling out a position. I thought that was very unfair. So I thought if we're going to do this, it needed to be fair across the board to say what you just said. that way, if any of us ran for any other elected position, then, it would apply versus singling out a position. I didn't think that looked good. I thought it looked very political. So I did not like that the way it was. So explain.
Well, let's stay on the amendment.
Okay.
And then
He changed that wording that you objected
Okay.
to.
All right.
Other comments on the amendment?
What does that mean? Any Mount Juliet municipal elected position?
it could be any, like say that one of us wanted to run for a state office, a state, if you wanted to run for a senator or something like that.
County commissioner or county mayor, property assessor?
Well,
I mean, those are all examples that I've known have happened.
Sure.
Sheriff.
Wasn't something changed about the county commissioner before?
that was you couldn't hold two offices. That was that you couldn't hold two offices.
Okay.
If we get through this amendment,
Yeah.
I'll explain
Okay.
this whole thing, the best I can.
Okay. Questions on the amendment that's offered, just changing that wording. All in favor of that, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? I think that passed unanimous. Okay, Commissioner?
Okay. So probably a couple years ago, when I would say that, and let's deal with just here in the city, in our 5 commissioners, 2 districts, if someone wanted to run for mayor, the other 2 districts couldn't. So at first, it was Art thinking, well, that's not fair to Ray and I, But then as you start looking into it, it wasn't us that was more important. It was the citizens who put that person in the office that they're in. And so I tarried with it about 2 years ago, and I've even mentioned it to some people. And then this past summer, one of my best friend had gotten me a book, given me a book. And some of you may have read this book, and it's called God, Guns, Grits, and Gravy. Anybody ever read that besides me? It's by Mike Huckabee. And he dealt with that in there. He talked about it. And all of a sudden the light went on. And I thought at some point I'm going to bring it up. And then, unfortunately, when you were appointed to be in here, this whole thing came up because some of us felt like that we should have a special election and let the people, if we couldn't come to a vote in here. And some people said, well, that's going to cost X, etc. This way, it puts the election is already there, so it doesn't cost anything. And the people in a district, if it's dealing with us, or even if it's not dealing with us, because if someone ran for another office, like you referred to, whatever it could be, then the people would have a chance to vote for someone to represent them in their district. Because going to that election, they don't know if any of us would win or any of us would lose. So if we won, all of a sudden they have no representation. And if they have time to elect somebody, then it's elected by the people, for the people. Otherwise, it's 4 of us putting somebody in that position, as far as a commissioner is concerned. So, I thought now would be a good time to do it.
So when Commissioner Justice ran for sheriff and you were or were not up for election that year for your seat here?
Was not.
You were not?
No.
So according to this, if he ran for sheriff, he would have to
decide, do I want to be sheriff and go for the gusto and totally put his efforts in that? If he wanted to be a senator or if one of us wanted to do that or whatever, then we would have to do that and someone else could run to be in our position, because whether we won or lost, that's where we decided that we wanted to be. people say, oh, I feel led to do this. Well, if you feel led to do that, give it your all and go for it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. But let somebody else represent your constituents that put you in here. We didn't put ourselves. We obviously nominated, and they did meet the first term. But this way, the people in the district has a say. It's
Okay.
those people who put all of us in our position that we're in.
And this has been done numerous times in the past where a commissioner ran for mayor and got elected. And I guess, I don't know if they were.
It did happen here.
Yes, several times.
It did happen. Yep. And what happened was, in that particular case, the person was the commissioner in the district. He served 2 years, and he ran for mayor, and he won, which created a vacancy. Then he appointed his friend to take that seat, and the politics around here were pretty bad. We needed the people to elect that seat. So,
Well, 60% of this board was appointed in the positions they have now currently.
For example,
Yeah. Everybody on this side of the table was appointed in the positions they have currently.
The first till they
Yeah.
ran.
So it worked. You were appointed mayor. Yes, you were vice mayor and got appointed to the mayor when the mayor resigned.
well, that's nothing to do with an election.
It's still, got an appointment. The process works. Same, you were appointed to backfill the seat. You were appointed to fill an open seat. I mean, the process is there already.
Well, hers, though, was a different situation because the person moved out. Mine was a situation where the mayor stepped up because I can't remember because a representative, right? Is that what happened? Did Linda?
She resigned.
Okay, because she won.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but if this had been in place in those situations, not in Jennifer's, because the reason that this commissioner left was because it moved out of the area. But if it's another situation where somebody's running, the people has the opportunity to put somebody in there. And I don't think we've ever read the way that it's written. Gino, explain the law the way that it's implied in there anyway. As far as
Under the common law that you cannot do what's been done. You have to resign your position to give the people the opportunity to vote on somebody. And this just clarifies, that's a common law. You have to read 2 or 3 different cases or 2 or 3 different statutes to meld them together, but there is case law that says you shouldn't because you take an oath of fidelity to represent the city, et cetera, and so forth, or your constituents.
Well,
And you can get out of it.
why don't we just do this? Anybody that's going to run in the next election needs to resign prior to. How about that? You want to do that?
What does that mean?
I mean, because basically what I'm hearing you say is that, this sounds political as all get out, whether it's meant to or not, it sounds political. There's all kinds of, we're talking about common law versus, I heard somebody say one time that they were talking about their common law wife. Well, that just don't exist in the state of Tennessee. So I'm not real sure how much stock to put into common law,
But common law wife, a statute specifically was adopted saying that does not apply in Tennessee. But there's every case which comes out is common law. Every judge's opinion is common law. There's negligence is a common law. There's no statute saying this is negligence. That's a common law. It's
So
developed
do we
under
have
the common
anything
law.
saying that is there anything specifically in the statute that says that what we're doing is illegal now?
There's no statute that says what's going on now, that you have to resign.
So there's nothing saying it's illegal, I guess is my question.
There's not a specific statute against it, but the common law can be read. Someone could contest it with a lawsuit and would probably win.
Okay.
say
so-
I was denied my right to vote. That was not fair.
So
Okay, so when Ron Ramsey ran for governor and did not resign his seat at the state legislature, that was okay.
State's different.
Really?
State law is different. Yeah, we got a different law applying to us.
but we don't have a law applying to us. What you're saying there's
We got
common
the
law.
current law, which was in 2010, that charter amendment.
Yeah.
Right, but that has to do with somebody having holding two positions.
Right. That's all. That's
That's
all
the only law.
statute we have right
Right.
now.
So what you're saying is that if a person here is sitting here and we're going to run for the mayor's position, when does it apply that we would no longer be a commissioner?
Someone, if you won that election and became mayor or whatever, and that spot was left open to be chosen by this group, they could say, you have denied me my right as a citizen of District so-and-so to elect my person. That statute, that election needs to be voided. That appointment.
So at
needs
what
to be
point does
voided.
this person resign? 90 days before the election or?
When you're, I
When
thought
you
it was when it
submit
was
your,
approved. No, yeah, when you get the office, that way you got. I'm sorry, Gino.
No, because Gino's saying when you get your paperwork,
Yeah, this is
When you qualify,
when you qualify for another position other than the one that you hold,
you need to resign.
then you need to resign.
Immediately.
That's not what you said, Art.
Mhm. Isn't that what your statute says?
What you were
What
saying
you're
was
saying?
that when you are elected, then you would have to resign.
so we I guess
Well,
we need
so
to
you
figure out
can't
what this
be
does.
What we did, we checked in another city to see how theirs was.
Who?
But
Which city?
Lebanon.
Well,
And
that's a
theirs
good
was, let me finish. And theirs was that when you qualified, then you had to resign. But the problem with that is that there's no representation for that district. So if when you qualified, then a person knows that they could run, because when you qualified, you're still going to be, say, the commissioner up to the day that you either win or you lose the election. And then that district has representation up to that time. There may be a dozen people running, but you would still be the commissioner up until the time that you won or lost. That district still has representation.
So the current mayor of Lebanon, if I recall correctly, was a sitting commissioner when he ran for mayor. Did he resign? I don't believe he did.
I don't know, but we've got their ordinance.
Yeah, I think they had some problems enforcing that.
I don't know.
I think there's way too many questions, and I think at this point, what we need to do is we just need to defer this.
I disagree. I think that we either vote it down or we vote it to go on.
I mean, it's asking for a referendum vote. I put in almost anything to a referendum. Let the people vote. That's what it's asking for. We're not asking to solve every problem right here.
But
We're
this
just saying, hey, citizens about Juliet, 32,000 of you, how do you want this handled? I think it's a very appropriate. We did the exact same thing on holding two offices at the same time, and the people overwhelmingly, 90-10, said, no, you can't hold two offices at the same time.
When was that?
2010.
2010.
And that was, at some point, Jim Bradshaw was city commissioner, and he also held the county commissioner seat.
Right, and he had to give one up, but he chose to sue the city instead, which
He was elected county commissioner before the referendum passed.
Okay, so he finished out the remainder of his term.
but he was still a city commissioner when the referendum passed.
And the mayor, wasn't that part of the mayor and
The mayor
state
was in the same
representative? Uh-huh.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was holding the mayor's seat and the state rep seat at the same time. Same exact condition. The state rep primary was prior to the mayor's election, and she held both seats simultaneously. And ended up suing the city.
And she won both at the same time.
Did she win both at the same time?
Is that right? No, that wouldn't be
No.
right, I don't think.
No, she was in the middle of her
Mayor
term.
seat. But she was elected. Yeah, it was a weird situation. She was elected state rep. At the same time, the voters told her she couldn't be both.
Because of that referendum.
Correct.
Right.
They said be both, but don't be.
So the change of the charter at the time, it went before a vote because it was a charter amendment.
It was a referendum.
Right,
Yeah, referendum.
So was the wording of it then? What was the wording? What was the wording? Did it say county commissioner? Did it single out a
No, it
position?
just said elected office.
It's captured in our charter now.
Can a person hold two offices at the same time? Something of that nature. Two elected offices.
Okay, so it didn't go far enough to address this,
Right.
what he's bringing up, right? Is that right?
Correct. So anyway, it's a referendum vote. I'm always for the people voting and weighing their voice in. We've done it before.
Again, I don't have a problem with doing that, but I've got some other things that I think should be considered as well in that referendum. And
Well, it has to be specific to this, and you can do that on the second reading.
Well, I'm not prepared to do that tonight.
Well, if I may, the timing of this is really suspicious politically. And I know you told your story, but this just looks suspicious politically. Trying to get it on the August ballot at the last minute to apply to the November ballot. I think there is a big lapse of homework done on this. Has anybody spoke to the Election Commission about this? Has anybody gotten a cost for what this is going to cost the city to run? Is everybody even aware?
I went through legal for the instructions.
And I read their thoughts on it, but is anybody aware that absentee ballots have already gone out for the August election? Those have already mailed. You know, the ballot's already approved for August. You know, the voting machines are already programmed for August. If we
I was told this could get on there.
You can get on there, but there's cost to doing it. And I sat Thursday night across from a business owner who's been in business in this city for about 10 years or longer now. In June, he's looking at laying off 25 employees. We talked earlier about the pain and the suffering of the private sector. And for us to be paying thousands of dollars potentially to Election Commission to reprint the ballots and reprogram all the machines for something that looks very suspicious politically going into this, I don't think it's going to set too well. And if somebody turns in their resignation, until that person vacates the office, the Election Commission cannot put that person's position on the ballot to begin with. Then there's the question of if this is approved August 6th, when does a referendum take effect if it's approved? It's when the vote is certified.
60 days after.
So when the vote is certified. So by your date, it wouldn't even apply until that point then, but the ballots would already be set. So any way to rush this and get this done in time for November to exclude people?
I don't know why you're saying it excludes anybody.
There's 7.8 billion people on the planet, and it only applies to people at this table.
We can find out the cost of this by the second reading. I think it's on the table to vote, and
I've already got an estimate on the
yay
cost.
or nay.
What is the estimate?
It's about $5,000 of reprogramming and ballot reprinting.
All right, other comments? It's just a referendum to ask the citizens to vote on an issue. That's all it is, nothing more. We can try to make it more than it is, but that's just, at the end of the day, it's a referendum. People get to vote. I think that's always a good thing. So
I tell you, in the middle of a global pandemic, in a state of emergency, this is the legislation we're getting right now. I have got a problem with that.
Well, when we've had seats open before, there was discussion about what's the cost to run a special election and let the people choose their representative. I remember you being very much against the people choosing their representative. So be it. So if you don't want people to vote on an issue as a referendum, then vote no. Other comments? All in favor of 11.8 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, that does fail. 2-3. I need a motion to suspend the rules at this time.
Motion.
Okay. Now, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion to suspend the rules. Gino, is there any special vote count that is necessary to do this? Majority vote?
Yes.
All in favor of suspending the rules to add one item to the agenda, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Rules are suspended by unanimous vote. I will read this into the record. And unless there's discussion, we will vote immediately. An ordinance to repeal ordinances 2019-16 and 2020-8 in their entirety. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments from the commission? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And with that, I will just simply announce that Memorial Day is Monday, May the 25th. It would have been our regularly scheduled meeting, our second meeting in May. And we do not meet on national holidays, so we will not be meeting that day. And the next meeting beyond that is June the 8th.
Motion, we go back to regular session.
Oh, sorry. Was I supposed to do that?
Yeah.
About the lease. I wasn't sure if it's tonight or another night.
The what?
Well, I forgot about it, but I can deal with that on second reading. And I'll be
Okay.
glad to update
Yeah.
anybody that's interested.
Oh, what now?
It's just a lease. It's not an agenda item. I didn't know if it was.
It's in the budget.
Yeah.
So just, they're asking for something more that we should have probably voted on first reading. I'll tell you in a second.
Okay.
I guess we need a vote to go back into regular session. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Session, and with that, unless there's an objection, we will be adjourned, and then we will see you on Monday, June the 8th. Everyone have a safe and happy Memorial Day. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Hey, Mayor, Board of Commissioners.